Senator Tom Cotton, Arkansas, Republican, serves on the Judiciary, Intelligence, and Armed Services and Joint Economic Committees as well. And we are glad to have you in focus today. I want to lean on the economic part of your acumen and get your reaction now to the truth coming out about inflation.
Well, Harris, the truth about inflation is that it's devastating our families across the country. They can't afford to fill up their tanks or to buy groceries, much less to save a little bit for Christmas or for a family vacation or the kids' braces. Inflation is up 13% since Joe Biden took office. And there's a very simple reason for that, as we just heard. Too much demand, not enough supply. Too much money, chasing too few goods. That's the direct cause of the Democrats' failed economic agenda. Last year, they spent $2 trillion on the economy as we were coming out of the coronavirus pandemic. Then they spent $700 billion more just last month. And at the same time, they're showering all that money into the already overheated economy. What are they also doing? They're constraining supplies. Democratic governors were locking down their economies until the middle of last year. Joe Biden is doing everything he can to constrain energy with his war on oil and gas and coal. And energy inflation is one of the worst kinds because it affects everyone, families and businesses, and the goods we make and how they're transported across this country. This is the direct fault of Joe Biden and the Senate and House Democrats. That's why the American people are going to rebuke them come November.
I don't know. If they see this and this is on purpose, that's one thing. If they're incompetent, that's another. Those are bad choices. All right.
You saw what Joe Biden said just last weekend when he was celebrating the fact that inflation is only at 8%.
He said
year
just an
over
inch.
year.
Yeah. A new DHS Inspector General report now shows that Border Patrol headquarters ordered agents not to assign alien numbers to about 138 illegal immigrants. That meant that they could move around the country with no monitoring. And the move was to speed up processing at overcrowded facilities. But without those numbers, those monitoring, tracking numbers, there's no way to know where those illegal immigrants are. Now Republican senators are asking DHS for the addresses of the people who are in America who've been given a notice to appear before an immigration judge. That's a lot of detail. The senators writing, quote, "Sanctuary city policies are dangerous and threaten public safety. These policies allow dangerous, violent criminal aliens to walk free without fear of deportation." The Democratic mayor of El Paso says moving migrants out of border communities is really nothing new.
It became very public when it became political. And I think it's important when we're talking about this morning that we take the politics out of this and understand that we have a lot of people coming across into El Paso, but they're not coming to El Paso, they're coming to the United States. And it's important that we sit there and look and see where they want to go. There's a big difference.
What's your reaction to this latest news?
Well, it's very troublesome, but it's pretty much of a piece with what Joe Biden has been doing for 2 years. Since he took office, we have 5 million illegal aliens who have entered our country, and we know where almost none of them are, whether they get one of these tracking numbers or not. All we do is send them into the interior of our country and say, pretty please report for a hearing at some point in the future. You know, whether it's Joe Biden's government, whether it's the Democratic mayor of El Paso, whether it's Republican governors, it's really unfortunate that we have migrants boarding buses and planes and going north into our country. Joe Biden should be putting them on buses and planes and sending them south, back to their own countries.
Well, they were putting them surreptitiously to states like Tennessee. Senator Marsha Blackburn told me that these flights with minor children were landing in her state and other places across the country. So Democrats are disingenuous and flat out lying if they say that they have a problem with people being bused and flown and all of that, because they've done it too. I recently visited the border, and a lot of the visuals that you'll see during this program are from my recent visit. And it was just last weekend. I talked with the president of the Del Rio sector for the National Border Patrol Council, and I asked him this question. Have you spent any time with Secretary Mayorkas?
I have. The reality is he, just like everyone else on that cabinet, are not going to do anything that the president doesn't tell him to do. So, you know, I think he can help influence it. I don't know what sort of pressure he's putting or pushing back toward the White House. I don't know.
They are really caught in the middle. They're told, don't take numbers for these people, don't do everything, because there are too many of them, but by the way, we're going to hold you accountable.
Yeah, the brave men and women of the Border Patrol or Immigrations and Customs Enforcement are not being permitted to do their jobs. It's kind of like mayors who are not allowing police across the country to do their jobs. These men and women in Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement signed up to enforce the law, to protect our border, to defend our sovereignty, and Joe Biden won't let them do it. And make no mistake, what you saw at the border, what I saw at the border last year when I traveled there, it's not an accident, it's not an unintended consequence, it's not bad luck. It's what Joe Biden and the Democrats want. It's what they campaigned on. It's the deliberate policy that they have chosen by design. And that's why the American people are going to vote them out of office in November.
Well, I tell you, those numbers in that Del Rio sector, which are the most porous parts and biggest numbers along our 19-plus hundred miles of border, they are eye-popping. The U.S. military has adopted another woke policy, apparently. Fox obtained new training curriculum for the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado, and cadets were told to stop using gender-specific language like mom and dad, boyfriend and girlfriend, and use more inclusive words instead. What would that be? It comes as the Department of Defense is sounding the alarm on plummeting recruitment. I can't wait to get into this with you. Let's watch.
The department anticipates we will collectively miss our annual recruiting mission despite assessing more than 170,000 remarkable young men and women. Our shortfall constitutes an unprecedented mission gap and is reason for concern for the greater state of national service.
Why don't people want to join the military now?
Yeah, Harris, young kids don't join the military to learn how to use the right pronouns. They join the military to learn how to kill the bad guys and defend this country. And if the Biden administration wants to know why recruiting numbers have collapsed, why we have a recruiting crisis, they just need to look at their own policies. Afghanistan, the vaccine mandates, the indoctrination sessions, radical gender ideology, the witch hunt for supposed white nationalists. The Biden Pentagon looking for the causes of the recruiting crisis is kind of like O.J. Simpson looking for the real killer, Harris.
Just real quickly, one thing popped into my head about Joe Biden and his recent talk about Taiwan and how our military would be there if China stepped up, which is not our national policy or national foreign policy at all. That's not how we've talked about that. But he's going to need a military if he's going to talk all big and bad like that. Real quick, last thought.
Yeah, the recruiting crisis is very dangerous for our country, and it will be dangerous for many years to come if we don't turn it around quickly. The way to turn it around is to get our military focused on its core mission, which is preparing for war and fighting war, not using the right pronouns or worried about things like gender ideology and lifting things like vaccine mandates. We need to turn the page at the Pentagon and make it clear to America's young men and women that we want them to join the military because we want them to defend this country, not go to social justice training seminars.
Senator Cotton of the great state of Arkansas, thank you very much for being in focus today.
Thank you, Harris.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.